Hallo Leute, ich bin Sandeep Verma, ich komme aus Indien. Ich wohne in Paderborn, das ist in Deutschland. Ich studiere Informatik in der Universität Paderborn und ihr seht Deutsch für euch.
I'm back from the much needed relaxation of a lovely Roman holiday, and I'm here to get right back to business in bringing you a new prefix. Or I guess new is debatable, but a prefix I haven't talked about yet, which today is ER. But before I get into that, I want to once again mention Lingoda, my sponsor for this week. Thank you again, guys. You can still get 15% off of any language course that you purchase over there using the code DFE5, DFE5. And in case you want to get any more information on them, stay tuned until the end of the video. Okay. Sich ergeben. To surrender or to give up. Sich ergeben. So when you see somebody waving a white flag, they might yell, Ich ergebe mich! However, sich ergeben can also mean to just happen. So to be the accidental or unforeseen, or at least not intended result of something. It doesn't have to be negative, but it basically says, oh, that just happened, kind of. I don't know. Wie habt ihr euch kennengelernt? Weiß nicht, das hat sich irgendwie so ergeben. Etwas ergeben means to be the result of something. So it's a fancier word of saying sein in that context. For example, 2 plus 2 ergibt 4. You could also say 2 plus 2 ist 4 or 2 plus 2 gleich 4 or ist gleich 4, but you could also say 2 plus 2 ergibt 4. So it doesn't have to be used in a mathy context, but it is usually in the line of equating to something. Different from sich aus etwas ergeben, which also means to result out of something, to be the product of something, but is less, equation-like, but more this follows out of that. For example, this results in an easy answer. Daraus ergibt sich eine einfache Antwort. Es sich gut ergehen lassen. To treat yourself. To really indulge in feeling good. For example, how was your holiday? I hope you treated yourselves. Wie war der Urlaub? Ich hoffe, ihr habt es euch gut ergehen lassen. Now, this is a very specific phrase that I just told you because that is what you will mostly hear this verb in, A, and B, it's kind of hard to translate it when it's not in that construction. However, I can tell you that the noun das Ergehen exists, and it means something like condition, feeling. At the doctor's office, they might say, Wie ist das Ergehen? That's kind of a, kind of a high register way to say it. Wie ist das Ergehen? So it means to ask for how's it going? Ergehen, going. Maybe you can connect it that way. So generally, Ergehen is kind of like, how do I feel? Etwas erstehen. To purchase something, to come into the possession of something, normally through making some sort of transaction. So that means you're making an active effort to get something. You could also use it as a euphemism if you stole something, but you usually don't use it when you gain something without you somehow being involved in getting it. Ich habe meine neue Mütze auf dem Markt erstanden. And as you can see from my face right there, it's also kind of high register, so that means it, again, of course, you might find it in writing, and then it's usually used with, stuff that cost a lot. So you might hear it connected to art, paintings, or stuff of that category. Etwas erklären or jemandem etwas erklären. To explain something or to explain something to somebody. Sich erklären, to explain oneself. So not to explain something to yourself, but to explain oneself. Ich verlange, dass du dich erklärst. I demand that you explain yourself. But we also have sich etwas erklären, or because of the context, often you will also see sich etwas erklären können, to explain something to yourself, to make sense of something, or to be able to make sense of something. Ich kann mir nicht erklären, wie das passiert ist. I can't make sense of how that happened. Etwas erfinden, to invent something. Etwas erhalten, to receive something. Ich habe deinen Brief erhalten. I got your letter. I received your letter. Now you will remember that bekommen also means to receive. The difference here is that erhalten, once again, is more high register. We're seeing a pattern here. Inseparable prefixes not always, but more often than separable ones are better speech. Etwas erhalten can also mean to maintain something, for example, the status quo, a certain societal order or whatever, or to conserve, to uphold, so to keep something in its current state. Die Ruinen in Rom sind sehr gut erhalten. The ruins in Rome are very well kept, very well upkept. They take good care of them, is what I'm trying to say. Etwas erlernen, to master something, or more precisely, to finish learning something. So when you erlernen something, you haven't just learned any part of it, you have learned what there is to learn. With lots of effort and struggle, I have learned or mastered how to correctly speak German. Ich habe mühsam erlernt, wie man richtig Deutsch spricht. Now this list is already long, but I wanted to put a few more in here. First of all, because is a very, very common prefix. I'll say more about that in just a second. And also just because, through that you have a lot of verbs connected to it. So here goes, first one, erblassen, to turn white, to turn pale. Erblassen. Etwas erwerben, to purchase something, to come into possession of something. Again, this is not, of course, as always, not in 100% of the cases, but it's a very, very close synonym to erstehen. Etwas erwerben or etwas erstehen both mean to come into possession of something through some sort of effort of your own, usually monetary. So I could use the same sentence. Ich habe meine Mütze auf dem Markt erworben. Nice little tidbit to kind of differentiate more. Verben, the verb werben, nowadays you will mostly see as to advertise, which is also connected to that. It also, in its more general meaning, just means to try to get somebody's attention or affection. So, for example, there's also jemanden werben, which means to what do you call that? Oh yeah, to woo somebody. So, jemanden werben is kind of an old term that you might still come across every now and then. That means to try to woo someone, to gain their affection, their attention. So erwerben is more in that pocket of meaning, in the sense of I did my best to get this, and because that's usually through money, it's usually connected to money. Erwachen, to wake up. And yes, there's also aufwachen. Once again, we have a register difference. Aufwachen is what you will, without problem, be able to use in spoken language and will use to express waking up. Erwachen is, first of all, more written language and also carries the connotation that the sleep was longer, or maybe the person was in a coma, or in a magic slumber. So for example, Snow White, erwacht. So that's kind of a connotation there is in it, which leads into it being able to be used ironically when, I don't know, your teenage son sleeps in and you're like, oh, der feine Herr ist erwacht. If you're a dickish parent, that is. Erwachsen, once again, this isn't a verb. It can be a verb, but you won't see it. You will, however, encounter this a lot as an adjective, which is when it means adult. Erwachsen. Ich bin erwachsen. I'm an adult. And then the last one is erfahren. Etwas erfahren. Etwas von jemandem erfahren. To come to know about something. To learn something. So to gain knowledge, basically. So you have all kinds of combinations here. You can say etwas erfahren, to come to know about something. Etwas über jemanden erfahren, to come to know something about somebody. Etwas von jemandem erfahren, to come to know about something from somebody. Etwas von jemandem über jemanden erfahren, etc. You get the idea. Short note before I get into the general meaning, let me stall for a bit. Because I find this very interesting, together with only 3 other prefixes, that being B, ver, which we haven't talked about yet, and ent, the last one we talked about, I think. Is among those 4 prefixes that make up 95% of when inseparable prefixes are used in German. So I think that's very interesting. That also means that you will encounter this a lot, so I'll do my best to explain what it means generally. The first thing that usually pops into my mind is this hand motion. Granted, that is a motion I use a lot in general, but I feel like it's actually connected to this one because I associate this with evoking something. And is connected to something coming into being a lot. Once again, that's not all there is to it, and actually to make sure I didn't miss anything, I took a look at Wiktionary for this one, and Wiktionary lists 5 distinct meanings for when it's used as a prefix, so we're going to take a look at those. The first one would be something changing its state due to some sort of pressure, be that literal or more metaphorical or mental. For example, erblassen, one that I mentioned in the list just now, you turn pale because of some sort of pressure that you feel. Another example I can think of would be erbrechen, sich erbrechen, which means to throw up. Number 2 is an action that is aimed at evoking a certain result. One example would be erfragen, which is to ask, but to ask while looking for a certain result. So usually you will erfragen something. I could erfragen the test results of an exam I took or am going to be taking. Or I could erfragen some specific information about a person I'm interested in or something I'm interested in. So you have a goal while asking. You're not just generally posing a question, but you're emphasizing the fact that you are trying to get at some sort of information. Erfragen. Another one would be erwirken, which pretty literally means to evoke, to cause something to happen. Others I mentioned for this category would be erwerben, erklären, and also erfinden. Number 3 is very specific. Number 3 is that turns words that are violent or potentially violent or can be connected to something that can be fatal, turns those things fatal. So example, normally when you use the word schießen, it just means to shoot. When you use the word erschießen, it means that you definitely shot somebody, or not you, but that somebody shot somebody. When somebody is erschossen, there is no doubt that they died due to being shot. When you say somebody shot at somebody, you would just say, hat auf jemanden geschossen. Hat ihn erschossen, however, means he shot and killed him. The same goes for stechen and erstechen. Stechen just means to stab or even just to sting. So you can be stung by a bee. Ich bin von einer Biene gestochen worden. However, erstechen, without any doubt, means that somebody got fatally stabbed. They were stabbed and are now dead as a result of it. This also works with some other verbs that are not violent by nature, such as trinken, which just means to drink, but when you say ertrinken, it means to drown. And then there's one example that doesn't even exist without the prefix er, which is ersticken, which means to suffocate, and that is both transitively and intransitively. So you can suffocate on your own, you can ersticken on your own, and you can jemanden ersticken, suffocate somebody. Number 4 to me is connected to number 2. It's a process that results in some sort of gain, although it is less active than for number 2. You are expressing a gain that you didn't actively pursue. For this I mentioned erfahren, to gain knowledge of something. Another example would be erlangen, to come into possession of something. And you might want to put erlernen here, to gain knowledge of something, although I would say that erlernen can be both an active pursuit of learning something and it just happened, I guess. Number 5 is pretty specific again. It expresses some sort of process of growth or expansion, such as erwachsen, to grow into an adult, I guess. and also erstrecken. Now, erstrecken is interesting because it can actually mean that something widens its reach, but it can also mean that something is already wide. So you could say, das erstreckte sich langsam über den ganzen Raum. It slowly spread throughout the whole room. But you could also say, die Ebene erstreckt sich über 3 Kilometer. The plane expands for as wide as 3 kilometers. So it doesn't necessarily have to be a process, but it expresses that sense of wide, big, tall. Now, it's hard to sum these up into one, but I think there is a way to do it. Personally, I'd say the groups to watch out for the most are groups 2 and 4, because those are the ones that are the least specific and also are going to be the ones that you encounter the most, meaning some sort of gain, be that through your active effort of gaining it or a sort of passive gain. Actually, I think you could even interpret 1 and 5 to be in that vein of thinking too. 5 being, that something grows, it gains in size, if you will. And then number 1 doesn't exactly always imply some sort of growth, but it does imply a change. So you could say it gains another state. Number 3 doesn't fit in as much here, but I feel like it is specific enough that you will recognize it and then come to use it after a while. It's always related to some sort of action ending fatally. So, overall, remember this. Is the prefix of GAINZ, except when it killed somebody. Alright, that's it for today. Your random word of the week is der Umzug, the move, as in moving from one place to another, because that's what I'm doing right now. Der Umzug and die Umzüge. It's also fitting because right now in Germany we have Fasching or Karneval, which is sort of like, Mardi Gras in America, or the carnival in Rio. You're familiar with the concept by now, I'm sure. And when they do their parades, that's what we call a Karnevalsumzug. Remember, as always, that if you become a patron over on Patreon, that means you pledge $1 or whatever you want per video that I put out, you can gain access to the script for this episode and any other grammar episode I've ever put out. Plus, on these prefix episodes, because I'm limited on time, I have to pick and choose which verbs I present. So those lists also contain more verbs for the prefixes. If you want to get access to that, be sure to head over there, pledge whatever amount you can afford, and once your first pledge goes through at the end of each respective month, I will add you to the Dropbox folder with those scripts. Thanks in advance. And then finally, before I go, it's sponsor time again. Woo! And as with the past 4 episodes now, this episode again is sponsored by Lingoda. Lingoda, in case you still haven't heard of them, in which case, what are you doing, is an online language service that provides classes, both individually and in groups, based on your current speech level. That means that everything is individualized to your needs, to your strengths and weaknesses. You get a private tutor who sees to you getting your money's worth. So if that sounds like something that you need, somebody kind of kicking your butt to learn a bit more, and also looking out that you actually learn what is useful to you, you could go check them out with the link in the description. And if you do decide to sign up, do yourself the favor and use this coupon code, which is DFE5, DFE5, to get 15% off of your purchase for however long you decide to sign up. And with that, I'm finally done. I don't know what that southern accent is doing there, but I'm getting back to packing my stuff now, and I'll see you next time. Bis dann. Tschüss!